she sat me down and she told me that she went to hospital and she was diagnosed with cancer. There's just this inner resolve of, you know, just take this jump. Like, what are you gonna lose anyway? And then people are like, oh my God, this is not you. You've lied to us, but you know, he just lied to himself.
Welcome, Ian. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
No, thank you for having me. It's been a long time coming.
It has. It's been over a year from what you said before.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. And like all of our guests, Ian, what we normally do is we start at the beginning of people's story, because you've had quite a colourful experience.
Interesting journey, you could say. Yeah. Do you want me to start you all the way back?
Yeah,
Take it back from...
Yeah, please.
Right. So, yeah. For those who might not know me, my name's Ian Nene, and 26 at the moment. My journey started all the way from Kenya. I was born and raised in Kenya, lived my life there. I guess I was always like a different thinker. I just got to know that I'm on the autistic spectrum recently. And I just got to understand, like, okay, maybe from my youth, I was just very much of a different thinker. I didn't assimilate information like everyone else. How I valued things was different. So I was always questioning and seeking deeper answers than, you know, your typical, you know, teenager would or, you know, child would. And I found myself in the acting industry. From a very young age. I think I was around 11 years old when I first got myself on screen. I remember, because I come from Kenya, my mom was saying, you know, the Kenyan industry in acting and in the media isn't that big, Ian. So, you know, focus on a white-collar job, get yourself a good job. Then after that, when you made your money, you can do whatever.
So you decided you want to get into acting?
I wanted to be an actor. I was like, I enjoyed just entertaining people. I think there's just like this thrill you get as, you know, as an entertainer. But my mom wasn't really for it, because she was looking at it realistically. Like, if you're coming from a place like Kenya, which is not as evolved, you know, you're not going to make anything of it. But I still was persistent. And I had like this go-getter mood that, yeah, I could make it. And I remember one day randomly, we had a performance in school, invited my mom over. And at the end of the performance, as we were going home, this guy comes and stops and is like, hey, are you Ian's mom? And he's like, yeah, I'm Ian's mom, blah, blah, blah. He's like, oh, yeah, I'm so-and-so, and I'm this producer, and I want to get your son on a TV show. And this was around like 2 weeks after she had told me, you know, figure something else out.
Yeah, never going to make it.
Yeah, and she was like, what do you mean? Yeah, and he was like, yeah, we think he'd be good on TV. He's got the charisma like that. And then, yeah, they landed me on a TV show, and then I started doing different things in Kenya. And for my entire youth, I could say from 11 to 18, I was acting throughout. I was on screen 24/7, didn't have really much of a break. All my school breaks were on set, you know, all my weekends were on set, and it was just this constant. You grew up really fast, you know, being as a performer or presenter, you're going to places people know you. It's this whole different reality. And then I decided I needed to get away from that a little bit and kind of find myself. So when I got to 18, 19, after graduating from high school, I got accepted to my dream school in the UK, which was University of Kent, for marketing. So then I jumped over here and I was like, okay, I'm going to start this new life and, you know, get to explore myself, be this loose cannon, because mommy isn't there to watch over me anymore. And yeah, I did that for a year, partied, you know, just did your typical uni stuff, you know, kind of just enjoying freshers. And then when I went back home for the summer to visit my mom, you know, I'd had all these plans. I had like a few appearances, different things I wanted to do, different collaborations. But when I got back, she sat me down and she told me that she went to hospital and she was diagnosed with cancer. And it was breast cancer, which then had moved to her lungs. So it was like stage 4 and it was moving pretty rapidly. So obviously you get hit with that kind of news. You're like, what the hell? And immediately your mind thinks of the worst thing that's going to happen. She's going to die. That's the first thing you think about. You know, you watch these things on news, you see it happening to other people. You don't think it's ever going to happen to your family. And so it just hit me like a brick. And I got really depressed for a while when that happened. And I started like getting into drugs to kind of minimize my pain. But simultaneously, I was questioning a lot. And I was like, what's the point of all of this? Why were we just born to live, get old, and then die? You know, there must be like a deeper meaning to life. You know, my mom has been such a nice lady throughout her life. She's gone through a lot of difficulty and she's always managed to come up better and more mature, and she's done so many good things, not just for myself, but for my siblings and for other people. Why does she have to get ill? What's this whole mumbo jumbo about? So I was just questioning life a lot. And I had this one time where I just sat in my room and I was like, God, if you exist, I want you to tell me what's going on. I don't want to hear from other people. I don't want to hear different versions of what you've said. I want to hear from you. People are misrepresenting you a little bit here, because I was born and raised a Catholic, and I'd gone to the church and I'd asked, hey, why do bad things happen to good people? And I didn't really get an answer, but I was always just informed that, you have faith and you believe. And for some people that might be satisfactory, just have faith in whatever life brings at you. But I needed a little bit more, like, what's the science behind this? Is there a science behind our existence? So in my inquiry, a friend of mine, I reached out to a friend of mine who had posted a picture of this lady who looked a little bit more peaceful than normal. She had this mark on her face, and she was just looking very happy. So I was like, hey, you want to give me some keys on how I can be Zen a little bit? And she responded to me and she was like, I can't give you Zen, but I can give you absolute wisdom. And I was like, absolute wisdom? I've never heard anyone be so bold to call something absolute wisdom. And she looked at me and she said, first, you have to understand that you're not this body. You're the spiritual soul within. And I was like, And obviously I used to smoke a lot of weed at the time. So, I'd be like, when my body is acting all dead and I'm going through this whole spiral within my mind, who's going through it? And my mom had come home from chemo one evening, and, her body, because chemo really exhausts and depletes all your energy, and she was literally so exhausted, but she was laying down on the couch and she was laughing and having joy. So I was just wondering, who's having that joy? Because it's not her body. Her body is going through so much crap. So that statement, you're not this body, you're not this body, you're the spiritual soul within, it kept on ringing within my mind, so much so that I was like, you know what, I want to visit you guys and find out more about what these teachings are. So I visited the temple she was staying at, which was in Nairobi. So this time, all this was happening in Kenya. There's a temple there with the Hare Krishnas, which is giving the fundamental teachings of this ancient book called the Bhagavad Gita under the guidance of a monk whose name is Srila Prabhupada. And so I went there and I was asking all these questions. Why do bad things happen to good people? Why is a kid born in a place like Baghdad and then has to die at the age of 4? And I was hitting them with all this, I was very argumentative. And then all these monks are just looking at me and they're just smiling. So I'm like, wait, why are you guys why are you not giving me the same energy? In an argument, you want that same reciprocated energy. Looking for a fight. Battle me. And then, they just opened for me some verses from the Gita where Krishna just talks about our journey of life and seasons of happiness and distress and the laws of karma and how things are happening beyond our control and how we have to surrender to it to achieve a much greater realization of life and connecting with the divine source, etc. And he just was answering all my questions, not in a way I was used to, but all my questions were being answered in a confident way. And it was just so confident that I was like, okay, these guys are up to something. And
what's the secret?
Yeah, what's exactly, And I was like, okay, now I need to find out more. But as I was getting more into it, my mom was noticing, and she was like, wait, where did you come from? Did you go to the temple? Because my mom's a staunch Catholic, and I applaud her as well, because her faith in her Catholicism is just so beautiful, and I've just watched her always still rely on her practice and connecting with God. It's been that's the reason why I was even attracted to the practice in the first place, because of my mom's faith in God, But she started noticing that I'm going to the temple, I'm coming back. Some days I'm smelling of this curry, smelling of incense. So she was like, hey, I think you're spending a little bit too much time with these guys, All I see them doing is running down the street, dancing and, making noise. They don't have jobs. I talked to one of them. He doesn't have a job. What are you talking about? So I don't think you should be hanging around with these people. But I always got this attraction. And she realized, okay, I need to cut something off. So she started cutting off my spend, my money, because I'm still under her care. She stopped giving me money because she knew, okay, it wouldn't be easy for him to travel to the temple without money, because as an actor, I can't just roam around the streets. It was a little bit difficult because you're known everywhere, it can be a safety hazard. So I had to lie to her that I didn't really lie to her, but I'd be like, I'm going to the club with my friends in the weekend. You want to give me some cash at least so that I'm not stranded at night with my homies? And then I'd save the money and not touch it, use everyone else's cash, and then use that money and then use that to go to the temple.
Normally people are lying about going to the temple so they can go to the club.
Exactly.
You're doing it the other way around.
Really, exactly. So I'm like, no, I'm going out. I want to go clubbing. And then I'm using that to go to the temple. And then so one day I remember I went to the temple, I told her I'm just going to hang out with my friend. I come back in the evening and I see both cars in the driveway. So I'm like, okay, that means mom's home. Normally she wouldn't be home because I knew I could come back home and she wouldn't know where I am. She wouldn't suss me out. It's all good. And this day specifically, I'd gotten books. So I met a lady at the temple and she gave me loads of different books, Science of Self-Realization, Karma and Consciousness, The Matchless Gift, which ended up becoming one of the books that I loved the most. But she gave me a pile of different books. And so as I'm walking into the house, I opened the door thinking that, my mom's probably asleep, but she's right in front of me.
And you got all these books.
And I've got all these books. So actually, I always wear oversized sweaters. So I tuck them under my sweater. Just kind of like walk in like that and, just get straight to my room. Then she asked me, Ian, where did you go? And I was like, I was just hanging out with my friends. And like, really? You smell a little funny. Are you sure you didn't go to the temple? Then the book started falling. And one of the books that fell was, what was it called? Yeah, The Science of Self-Realization. And the picture of the Science of Self-Realization is like this deity form, or it's like an Indian deity of personality known as Vishnu, with like 4 arms and everything. And so my mom is looking at this and is like, oh my God, these guys are really brainwashing you that you're lying to me. There's something wrong here, So she immediately booked me a flight and she was like, go back to the UK. Because you can focus on your studies and you wouldn't hang around with these Hare Krishnas. So I come back to the UK and I'm like, let me look for them. And then I found them.
In Watford?
In Canterbury. So this was when I was in uni. I was in Canterbury, University of Kent. So I found them in Canterbury and started connecting with them. Then booyah, slowly found myself in London, connected with the monks in London, then connected with the monks in Watford. And then, one of the monks there ended up becoming my mentor, some amazing personality. And he touched my heart so much that after graduating, I told my mom, I'm not going to come back. I'll just I'll spend some time at the monastery to just find myself. And she lost it.
Did she? Yeah.
Yeah, she was like, okay, then let them take care of you. Let them do everything. I'm done. Yeah. Let them feed you. They're doing everything for you. You're relying on them. I'm here dealing with cancer and you can't even come and spend time with me.
How did you kind of feel around that?
That was a tough one.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you'd think, okay, maybe the best thing for me to do is to be with her and just give her my time because I don't know what would happen. But then a part of me was thinking, wouldn't my mom be more comfortable knowing that, no, my son is figured out and he can take care of himself and he can figure his own life out. Let me just work on myself so that I can come back and be like, here you go, mom. You have a redefined man who can kind of live his own life.
100%.
Yeah, so I knew, going back home would be like a cheapskate. But me maybe going through this journey into the unknown and kind of diving into this wisdom would be a better thing for me to do for her. And that's what I decided to do. So it was a bit tough. And in the beginning, we fought a lot. My mom and I, we fight all the time. We have this like very interesting, argumentative relationship, her and I. We're always arguing, but it's out of love. It's like it's such a sweet relationship. I love my mom to bits. But yeah, we went through that a bit and, she didn't understand it for a while. And I also didn't understand what I was doing. And I think a mother's natural desire is just to know that my kid is okay. You know? And I wasn't giving her much information. I'm in a different country. COVID's happened. She can't even come and check on me, So it was a bit mad. But after a while, she got the hang of it. She appreciated the fact that, I took a bit more of a positive life change. I wasn't, inspired by going to the club all the time and getting drunk.
That's
and,
fair,
we're hearing so many stories about some of my friends who, got lost in the whirlwind of intoxication, having to go to rehab and all these things. So a part of her felt, maybe this was a good decision you made and I'm going to support you because I'm your mom and I love you,
I think sometimes the difficult things is when we don't understand something, we generally put it in a negative we kind of put it in a negative world of like, oh, this, you know, they might taint my son, or they might, you know, do something to kind of like stray him off the path or something like that.
That's it.
People generally get worried about something that there probably isn't really anything to worry about.
No, exactly. You know, like I was being fed every day. You know, I had a place to stay. I had food. Everything was provided for us in the monastery. But I remember actually when my mom called, I made her have a phone call with my mentor at least once. I was like, you know, just have a chat with him so at least you can see. And they had a video call.
Did she give him a load of grief?
Actually, she didn't. I was expecting her to be all guns blazing, but she just said, you know, at the end of the day, I just want my son to be okay. So you just promise me you're going to take care of my son and that he's in good hands and that I don't need to have anxiety. And yeah, he was like, I got you on that one. Don't worry, he'll be good. And it turned out to be for the better. And yeah, so I did that for 3 years. This was from 2019 to 2022. Around the time when I met you, actually, because I met you in 2022, in April. And then, yeah, towards the end of 2022, I moved out the monastery. And then now I'm kind of situating myself in, quote unquote, the real world and trying to maneuver it. But I'm maneuvering it a little bit differently because I've got this wisdom as well of these teachings that can be quite valuable for the postmodern psyche, which I think is missing out on all this information because we've kind of just shifted to the side, you know? So now I'm in this like journey of how can I be an instrument of sharing wisdom that's valuable for people's consciousness whilst they live their everyday lives, you know? So it's like I went to the monastery so you don't have to. And kind of give those keys to individuals to live a happier life.
Do you know one of the things that you mentioned, which is it's a bit hard to see for a lot of people, but you know when you kind of follow something that your intuition is telling you like, oh, I want to follow this. You don't know where it's going to lead, but it's really quite challenging because you're in this old, like this familiar place you're used to, this comfortable world, but you want to kind of grow beyond that and experience new things. And it must be quite mentally challenging because you've got your mum as an example, or even other people that'd be like, no, stay the same. Why do you need to change? Why do you need to change? Yeah. What did you feel like you were really getting from the situation that was giving you more than what you may have already had or didn't have?
I mean, yeah, the journey to the unknown can be quite a daunting thing, you know. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I had no understanding of what this would lead to. I mean, I'd already worked so hard as an actor, built a foundation for my life that would, you know, ensure that I don't have to worry materially or financially, you know. And then now I'm kind of abandoning all that to enter into this reality that, you know, is a total shift from everything I've ever known, understood. It's considered to be like, you know, Indian culture, although it's really for everyone. But these Vedic teachings are just so different from what I've ever known, you know. So there's a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety. Am I making the right choice? A lot of doubt, you know. But I think there's just this inner resolve of, you know, just take this jump. Like, what are you going to lose anyway? You know?
Yes, fair.
And I think life at times puts us into these positions that if you do like an analysis of it and you think about it, you're like, okay, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to work out, but my heart's driving me here. Let me just go for it. Worst comes to worst, this is what I learn. And it's a lesson and I'll move on from it, you know?
And it's very much like, what have you really got to lose as well?
Exactly. You know?
It's just time. But then if you learn something from it, then you haven't lost anything.
You haven't lost anything, yeah.
It's just something to gain.
Yeah, and I think I'd met such lovely people in that space who were so confident. And actually I could say even for myself, something I haven't shared already is I didn't have like the best example of men in my life, you know. Most of my uncles are alcoholics, and you know they didn't really live like the perfect example of what a man should be like in my eyes. And so I always veered away from masculine energy because I found it quite traumatic. Yeah. You know, my stepfather was a little bit abusive, you know, well, not to me, but more so to my mom, and I would observe it. And my uncles obviously were like drenched in intoxication and just in this bad world. So I didn't have a good example of men in my life.
And your father,
Yeah, my biological father, he had left my life when I was young. Okay. So they separated with my mom when I was young, and he didn't really make an active effort to connect to me in my youth. So I always had like a bad sting in my mouth every time I was thinking about masculine energy. But then now I come to this space and I find, happy, vulnerable, emotional men.
Yeah.
Who are not afraid to open their hearts, who are not afraid to say how they feel, who are confident in who they are, who are confident in their emotions, even in sadness. So I was like, wow, I've never experienced this before, because with my awareness of masculine energy was that you put up a front, you perform, you have to show this macho, I've got my shit together kind of vibe.
A bit of toxicity there.
And then now I'm in this space, and you're getting all these examples of men who are mature and are confident within themselves, who can cry, who are emotional. So I thought, what, I'd rather make this jump and see what it is. As much as I don't know what's going to come out of it, let me do it and see where I come out the other side. And yeah, it turned out for the best.
and did you not ever get that feeling from being a Catholic, that vibe, that energy, like?
Yeah, no, I didn't. It didn't hit the same. I know for some people it does. Like, I have a few friends who, because I was in the Catholic Church, I did like catechism, and I was working my way to be an altar boy at some point. So like, I was kind of still in the monastic vibe. And I know some people who did that, and they turned out to be great. Like, they had a beautiful experience. But for me, I didn't get the same thing. And then also in my youth, I did get assaulted. By someone who was in the religious space, who was in that, and obviously that does kind of mess up with your mind as well, because it's like, no, I'm coming here for God, and then this is what's happening. So I didn't get the best example there. Although I could see where there's positivity there, but just my own experience subjectively was a little bit not the best. But when I went to the temple and I met, especially my mentor, I saw this guy and I was like, dude, you're so cool and you're so real, and you're not performing for me, you're just being yourself. And I was like, I want to be around people who are being themselves. As an actor, we kind of
have to put a mask on.
You're putting a mask on all the time, and your success is to the degree by which you can put a mask on so well that others believe it's you.
And that can be tiring in itself.
It's exhausting. I think actors are the craziest people.
No, I was thinking about it the other day, about how they've got to laugh on set, they've got to cry on set, they've got to do all these different emotions,
right?
And that must be quite a weight to have to kind of. How did you find acting in Kenya? What was that?
I mean, the acting industry in Kenya is I'd say it's the same. I didn't see much of a difference, but naturally you're trying to, present emotions and feelings to the localized psyche. So you're trying to connect with like the Kenyan populace and how they feel. So,
which must have been difficult for you, because you was always trying to think outside of the box.
Exactly, and then I'm not different. Be like exactly, and then I also, as a boy, and I grew up around so many women because I veered away from the men, and I was quite feminine and super flamboyant in my expression. It was just such a different, to be able to entertain, the local Kenyan boy, I found it to be so difficult and, quite challenging for me, because I didn't feel like I fit into that box of, what a guy is supposed to be like. I'm super feminine. I act a little bit different. I mean, my voice is way higher than right now. Thank God for genes kind of, basing me up a bit. But, before it was crazy. So
coming to the UK was almost like a blessing for you, really.
It was. And you know what? Ever since I was young, I used to watch like BBC and stuff, and I would be like, I'll find my way to London. And this it really affirmed, because I learned about the law of attraction, and we learned about this from the Vedic teachings as well, how, if you set an intention, in Sanskrit it's called a sankalpa, when you set a sankalpa in your life and you have that pure intention to use it for good, that the universe starts to make these arrangements to make it happen. So I remember when I landed in London, I was like, I remember, ever since I was a kid being like, I want to be here. And so it was an escape. It was a perfect escape.
I believe in it I believe in that as well. It's just like a form of manifestation, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think you've got to be careful with your mind, because it can either work for you or work against you. And it's almost like believing is then becoming. Like, by believing it's going to happen, it will become. You
remember that song? There's a song, I don't know if you remember it, by what are they called? But I forget the name of this girl group, but she used to sing, "Be careful what you wish for, cause you just might get it," right?
Well, that's the other thing.
Because at times you don't. Your mind you might attract something that you don't really want, and then it lands.
And that was something that I was wanting to ask you, is that in the Hare Krishna world, is very much like they promote being content in life and like being happy with everything that you've got. But how do you live kind of like a fulfilled life and a prosperous life if it's just about being content with what you have? So essentially you don't need anything else.
Right.
So
I
struggled with it a lot, and I still struggle with it, understanding it today.
Yeah.
If I'm honest with you.
Yeah. I remember my mentor, he gave me a statement, and he said, spirituality or going deep into your spiritual practice doesn't mean that you don't own anything. It means that nothing owns you. So it doesn't mean that you give up having goals, aspirations, or dreams, or targets, or things that you want to achieve because you just have to be content with whatever comes. There is scope for that as well. You have personalities who are content with what comes, and that satisfies them. But it's just that, you know, you are striving for something greater, if you are striving for something greater, but you're not letting that define you. You're not letting whatever you're trying to achieve define who you are as a person. So it's more so, it's detachment in a different kind of way. Not how we normally perceive detachment is that you don't care.
Yeah.
But it's not that you don't care. It's just that it doesn't affect you or hold you with the same clutch that it would have if you know, for somebody, let's say they think, I remember one time I went on the street and I was talking to this girl who I'd met, and I'd asked her, you know, what's your goal in life? And she told me, and she looked at me and she was like, she wants to be on Love Island, you know? And for her, that's like the thing. And she was like, if she doesn't get to Love Island, you know, it will destroy her as a person. So, you know, I wouldn't say that it's wrong to have that as a goal. I mean, you know, you could challenge that and be like, I don't know about this, sis. But if she maybe tries or attempts to get to Love Island and it doesn't happen, will that change who she is as a person? If it's going to affect her, then maybe her attachment to going on Love Island might not be a good attachment.
Yeah, that's
but
fair.
You know, so but if, let's say she you know, hopes to one day achieve that and maybe works her way towards that, and even if she doesn't get it, you know, it doesn't redefine who she is as a person or make her feel less than, then she's still striving for the goal, but she's not being overly affected by it. So
and I think there's a lot to be said about who you become along the journey as well.
Right.
I don't think it's always about the end destination. It's
a journey, right?
Yeah, you got to grow into it, and I think that sometimes when we're too fixated on the wrong things, we might miss the opportunity to learn and grow, as opposed to like just flowing with it, and what will be will be. Like,
yeah. And I think a journey brings you so many realizations, isn't it? Like, you know, you could go on this journey 100%. And then realize, actually, at the end of the day, this is probably not what I want to do. So, you know, but it's thanks to you going through that journey that you got that clarity that maybe I need to change direction. I need to try something different. So, you know, there's power in experiencing that and 100%. Getting that validation that maybe I need to do something better, you know.
It's just basically like chapters in your life. And I think the challenge is to know when it's time to change a chapter or even stay in the same place. You know, I think that's the thing that we're always trying to figure out all the time, where along the journey is like, okay, I'm not getting fulfilled enough from what I'm doing. I need a change. Or I need to really stick with what I'm doing because the magic hasn't really started.
Happened.
And that's always the balance.
I remember my mentor telling me that naturally what happens is you get this tension. There's like a subtle tension that begins to brew, not just within your mind, but also within your body. You know, your body keeps a score. It responds to your consciousness. And so if, let's say, you're destined to make a change in your life, but you're not actively doing it, you feel this shift from your inner being, you know, and because we're not in tune with our inner being, we're not able to see it often. And that's what I think a spiritual journey kind of helps you do, is to be much more in tune with yourself and then kind of make the jumps when they need to be made for you to have the awakening that you need, you know.
That's fair. So did you come over here and start acting? Did you carry that on over here?
No, I haven't carried it on just yet. I'm considering it. You know, I mean, my living situation in the UK is a bit different, but at the moment I'm working, and I'm working in an educational, in the educational sector at the moment. But yeah, if the opportunity arises, I'll probably work my way through it and see what I do have hopes or desires to achieve that as well eventually. I'm just still trying to figure out how to do it.
Do you know what? If I'm honest with you, I didn't realize how young you were. And for someone that's gone on their journey and done so many different things so far, like you've definitely because I've followed you as well on Instagram,
right?
And I see you're always active and like doing things. I mean, what's are you still, and do you still go back to the manor and the?
Yeah, the nice thing about the monastery, or about this spiritual practice, is that it's not just something that you need to perform or practice in that particular setting, but you can kind of learn how to take those gems and then apply them in your own life. So
what's the biggest gems would you say that you've taken?
I would definitely say the meditative practice has been a powerful gem. We would wake up every morning in the monastery and do at least 2 hours of meditation every day. And at first I used to be all mental about it and be like, oh, I could use this time to do so many other things. But now I'm realizing, getting those 2 hours was a luxury, because the way the world is pushing us, it's just so fast paced and so difficult. But yeah, I learned how to do meditation at home. I usually do my meditative practice on a regular, almost every day. Actually, every day I have to. What do you mean almost every day? Every day I have to engage in my spiritual practice. We study scriptures, and we do like online programs as well, where we read and discuss some of these spiritual topics with others, and kind of still keep connecting with the energy. And that, still helps me feel like I'm connecting with that spiritual energy from the temple, even though I'm not physically within it. Yeah,
that's fair. So what's kind of like important for you, like right this moment in your life, where you're at? What's like your main focus and your goals, and what are you looking to achieve at this moment in time?
Yeah, it's interesting you asked me this. I was actually thinking about it a while ago, is that I've only been living in, you could say, the real world, where I'm having to work a job and, survive materially for a year.
Right.
And I'm just about to come, I think, in mid-November going December is when I'll have actually done a full year outside the monastery for my first full year outside.
And how was lifestyle at the monastery different compared to...
Oh my God.
That's a deep...
Oh, I mean, when you're living in the monastery, you don't have to think about bills. You don't have any bills, first of all. All that's taken care of. Your food's taken care of, your clothing's taken care of, your basic needs, your toothpaste, your soap, all of that. Everything is kind of covered.
And you don't have to pay for...
And you don't have to pay. But what you basically have to commit to doing service.
Right.
And how the temples work is based on your nature, that you find an intensity that suits your personality. So some people worked in the gardens because they loved gardening work. Some people loved working with the cows, so they went to work with the cows in the farm. I love to talk and love to share wisdom and just have discussions. So I was doing university programs. So I'd go to UCL, Queen Mary, and join their spiritual societies there and just have discussions with different individuals about spiritual topics, because the youth are kind of into that.
Yeah.
So that would be your reciprocation with having everything taken care of,
Right. And
you'd wake up early in the morning. You have a particular kind of regimen that we're following every day, from as early as 4 o'clock in the morning. And so that's obviously so different, because I don't have to think about where am I getting my next meal from. All that's being provided. Where am I getting my clothing? I just need to go to my leader and be like, hey, my robe's ripped up, I need to get a new robe, or I need trousers, I'm going to this place, can you organize for me this? And everything would get sorted out for you.
Wow.
Whereas when you come outside and you're living in the real world,
you got to do it all.
You have to figure it all by yourself. And I'm just like, my compassion for people who've been living in this world like this is insane, I just recently was dealing with, when you're working in a company and you hear chatter or gossip amongst workmates and stuff like that. And I was just hearing some stuff, and I was talking to my mom about it, and I was telling my mom, I can't believe people would say this about somebody else and this and that and the other. And my mom would be like, that's the work environment for you, son. Welcome to the real world. And I'm like, whoa, this is how it is?
Yeah.
So at the moment, it's been just trying to learn and figure out how to actually really live in this world and really live out of it with the teachings of spirituality that we learn. Because we tell a lot of people who come to the temple, you can live this spiritual life in your homes. So now I'm having to be that example. Really
and it can be quite challenging.
Oh, crazy. It's super crazy.
Because it's quite funny, isn't it, how you said it's like the outside world is crazy, when a lot of people, they'll look at a place like the temple and they'll assume like a lot of people are crazy that probably go to the temple, like they're just not, it's just them environmental changes that are just different.
Yeah. Because it's a whole different vibe, you know.
It is.
You know,
you're massive.
Waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning, by 4:30 we're all in the temple room, the curtains open and we've got deities there, and we're doing all these prayers to the deities and you know, to divinity and how we understand divinity. And it's a party. We're dancing from like 4:30 all up to like 7 a.m. you know, and it's a whole different reality. But you'd see that from the outside and you'd be like, no, that's crazy, I wouldn't do that. But for us, it was lit.
yeah everyone just seemed super, like, really happy there, to be honest with you. And that was something that when I went there last year, just randomly, I remember a random person coming up to me and they were like, can I show you around? Do you want something to eat? And they were like, the hospitality was just absolutely insane. So I can really see how people can get really drawn into a place like that.
Yeah.
Because in the outside world, you know, it's nothing.
I ain't even looking at you, mate.
Yeah,
you know, I'm just on the other side. And I can say the thing about spirituality, or that I've learned from my experience, is that naturally just makes you love others. You know, you start to have this awareness of yourself as a spiritual being looking for love. And then you realize, I'm not alone in this. Everyone in this world is looking for love, is actually looking for happiness in how they understand it. So that billionaire, that pauper on the street, they're all looking for the same thing, and they're trying to find it in how they understand
their version of it.
And so because I've had this awakening that I'm also this spiritual being looking for love and happiness, I just have more love when I'm dealing with others, more compassion, you know, more patience. And that's why you feel when you enter that kind of a space, people are loving you so much. You're like, wait, where's the catch? Where am I going to have to pay?
Right.
You know,
you do
it's
think
so unnatural, right?
Yeah.
But it's because, you know, it's the byproduct of a spiritual practice. It's meant to awaken your heart to loving others and helping others on their journey of loving themselves as well, because we're going through that internal journey of self-love and you know, loving what's around us simultaneously.
I think like how I have it in my head as well is there's a big karma thing with all of this, is that what you give out to the world is generally what you should end up, what you get back.
What you get back, yeah.
So if you like give out hate or hurt people, then there's a high chance that that's going to come back to you in different ways. But if you're giving out love and that's what you truly want for yourself, then surely it's going to come back in. It might not come back in exactly how you want it to.
Yeah, but you will feel it. You will feel that reciprocation. Yeah, there's a way, when you open yourself up to just being this instrument of giving love. Like I do this affirmation with some people and I tell them, when you wake up every morning, remind yourself, I'm made of love. I'm made to give love. I'm made to receive love. Oh, divine energy, oh Krishna, please engage me in your loving service and teach me how to love. And
it's quite interesting though with affirmations. Sometimes we hear these things, but why do you think we forget them? Why do you think like we have to remind ourselves of this?
It's a thing you constantly have to remind yourself, because it's our tendency to forget. The scriptures actually talk about this. They say we've got like 4 defects. The first defect is that you've got imperfect senses. So your senses can't always perceive things as they truly are, you know. Ever been in a situation where, you know, at times you're like, it's dark in the house and you turn on the lights and it's like there's a ghost, right? And your senses tell you, but there's really no ghost. But you kind of, you know, so so you've got imperfect senses. And because of your imperfect senses, you'll be led into illusion. That's our second deficit. We'll be led to illusion. So at times we'll perceive things in the wrong ways. And then, we've got imperfect senses, you're then bound to illusion, which will ultimately mean that you'll make mistakes. And that's our third deficit. You make mistakes, you won't do things perfectly. And then to cover up our mistakes, what do? Is that we cheat and we lie, you know. And so I think when you're getting through this spiritual journey, you're kind of working from this space of authenticity where you can kind of be more real and, you know, just accept and let go of our imperfections and, you know, who we are as individuals in that external show and just be honest and real with who we are. And then, yeah, your journey becomes a little bit more sweeter and, you know, connecting with others and living with others like that.
It's quite funny when you like saying about we lie and we cheat. I think that in the end, what happens is you lying and cheat. You might get away with it to the other person, but you're probably lying and cheating to yourself in the end. Yeah. And that's holding you back from that growth, that journey of that next evolution of what you might need to become in the process.
Exactly. Because you're working with a performance, you know. I always say the Oscars don't need to go to the actors. Like the world, everyone needs an Oscar because people are so professional at it, you know. Even in the UK, for example, you ask me, how you doing? And I'm all right, you know. When you've just had
the easy answer,
you know,
isn't it?
Yeah. So we're just so caught up in this act. And it's like spirituality is this journey to strip away the act and just be yourself in whole. You know, you're good and you're bad and just be, you know, transparent.
I think what I've also found is some people don't like to emphasize and encourage like that they're not feeling good as well. So they put the mask on to push it down.
Right.
Rather than kind of bringing it out to the open.
Yeah.
And I think the more you expose it, the more it goes away. That's my belief.
Yeah.
But some people also have the belief that the more I push it down...
And I don't think about it, the more I ignore it, it will go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that never works.
Yeah.
You know? As we mentioned earlier, the body keeps a score. So even if you suppress something, eventually it comes out in like a different way. And, you know, you might not be able to trace how it comes out, but when it does come out, it can be, you know, worse, you know, because you're letting it brew and ruminate in not the best of ways.
100%.
Yeah.
And how have you found it going to the universities, by the way? So you've like had to go and speak to students, because I know Jay Shetty's had to do that in the past as well. And I've seen other monks that they would go to universities and they talk to people.
Yeah.
How do you find that experience?
Yeah. So the temple that I was serving at, yeah, they have this like wonderful like youth society. It's called the KC Sox. And they run different KC Socs across different universities. And it's basically just like a sacred space where individuals can come and discuss spiritual phenomena and topics and, you know, be able to get that break from the madness of university. And you do get a lot of inquisitive people because, especially at university, you're being hit with a lot and it's like you're questioning a lot. You're trying to think about, where do I get my next job? What's this? What's that? Do I even like my degree? You know, and you're going through this maze and you're questioning and you're having a lot of whys. So it was nice being in that space because then you can get to churn really the whys with different people and then you watch them evolve. I have one guy I remember I met at the temple and at the university program. And we carried on having a conversation and he took some time out, moved into the monastery, and I came out and he's this like redefined version of himself, which is so cool. So it's just always been nice being with university students in that way because I guess they're more inquisitive at the time. It's like a window period to question. Because once you're out of it and you're caught up in the rat race of work and paying bills and mortgages, etc., you don't have time.
Yes.
But they've got time a little bit to be able to contemplate these things. So it was nice having these discussions with them.
And have you ever found any disadvantages or cons to being a Hare Krishna? Have you ever found any challenges around any of it that have tested you with it all? Or
yeah, I mean. That's a very interesting question. I'd say it like this. Okay, imagine the space for me, and this is just my subjective view. It's a beautiful space, but you can imagine it's a hospital which is coming to give people spiritual inspiration. And part of your treatment is that you become a doctor as well. So, you know, you're coming in there trying to unlock this heart of love and connecting with divinity within yourself. And partly how you do that is by trying to help it being unlocked in other people's lives. So having a deeper understanding of it and being able to pass that on. And so you're dealing with individuals who are not only doctors, but who are also patients. And they've also got the 4 defects as well. They've also got the imperfect senses. They're making mistakes. And so I wouldn't say it was a disadvantage, but it was a learning curve for me to realize that, you know,
not everyone might have the answers.
Exactly. Yeah, not everyone might have the answers, or not everyone might be what they present. That we're all just in the same struggle out here trying to make it. You know, everyone is kind of going through the thick of it. And so I had ignorantly I had ignorantly put myself in circumstances where I just had blind faith in persons because they held that position as a Hare Krishna.
Well, generally, when a person speaks of like that confidence of knowing what they're talking about, most people assume they've got their shit.
They've got their shit together. And so I had kind of placed my trust and my heart in some individuals. And then they managed to fail me successfully.
Right, wow.
But then,
how in what way?
Yeah. I mean, I'd relied on them in certain ways, or given my heart out in certain ways, and got to find out different things afterwards. Maybe that they perceived me different, or that what they had shared with me is not really how they felt.
Right.
And
which is a bit against what you were speaking about earlier, where it's about authenticity.
Yeah, and appreciate and understanding of different people from where they're at, But yeah, it was more so a failure to myself. I wouldn't say it's an issue with the space or with the institution. I would just say maybe it was me blindly, taking shelter. And so I was kind of awakened by being shaken up, like, hey, you also have to be intelligent in your decision making. You have to be intelligent with who you associate yourself with. Just because someone is wearing robes and saying that they chant certain mantras doesn't mean that they'll treat you with the same love, care, and respect that others will. I've met people who are not Hare Krishnas who've treated me with way much better love, care, and affection than some Hare Krishnas have. And so yeah, I wouldn't say there's a problem or that I had an issue with the space of the institution. It was more so myself not taking responsibility or sovereignty of myself and, kind of controlling who I'm giving my heart to, because I gave my heart to the wrong people and then I kind of got stung at the end, Yeah.
I think the kind of challenge as well is that you are who you are at the end of it, and you can adopt certain values and ideas and cause, but ultimately you got to be true to yourself,
right?
Without, because it's important to take the positives but not lose yourself in the process. And I think the challenge in whether it's religion or anything else is taking the good but not. My dad always used to say to me, take all the good and leave the bad.
And
that's and I think it's what is good for you and what isn't good for you. It's really defining what that looks like. So that you are loyal to yourself still.
Exactly.
Because a lot of people are ending up being loyal to other things and then disloyal to themselves.
Yeah.
The process.
And then you spend a couple of years and you look back and you're like, I already sold myself, to this idea of being somebody that I'm not. And I've been living a performance in trying to be myself, and
that's scary, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I remember going to the manor, and there'd been people there for 20, 30 years at this, and it's like, I'm not saying they would, but could you imagine one day waking up thinking that I haven't been entirely true to myself?
Yeah, and you get circumstances like that. I do know people who, and not just in the Hare Krishna temple, but in different spaces, who, kind of got into it and, sold themselves to the idea of what this might have to offer, and sold themselves too much that they forgot themselves. And then they've kind of been in it for so long, and their body and their being has acclimatized to this environment. But then now they start to realize, the thrill of everything has been exciting, but now where am I at? And I'm not really being myself, and I'm not happy in who I am right now. And then they become frustrated, and then they end up doing a much more radical shift back to their old ways, which is what we don't want. But I think it's nice having these kind of spaces that maybe, and this is why I appreciate about the practice, or what I associate it with, is that it gives you a manual that you can kind of take and then adjust and work with in your life. And your currency is your sincerity. It's one of those things you can perform, but if you perform, it won't feel the same way.
That's fair.
You can't fake it. You can't fake trying to love others. It's just so hard. And when you do fake it, people will feel it. They'll feel it's a performance. When you make it genuine from yourself, even if you don't have it, and you're open about your deficit, people feel that, and they appreciate a much more real, honest exchange.
Vulnerable person.
Yeah.
And they do someone that's always putting on a good show.
Yeah, a good show. And because it's like, okay, when will the performance end? And then you're caught in your in stopping your performance, and then people are like, oh my god, this is not you, you've lied to us. But he just lied to himself, because he was stuck in this performance, and now he's allowing for his real self to grow, but you guys don't know his real self because he never showed it to you, because he forgot that part of himself,
That's fair. Because we spoke about this outside of the room as well, and I wanted to get your view on here is with religion. Would you say Hare Krishna is a religion?
In one sense, you could classify it as a religion. If you look at religion as a practice that lets you know, understand, and love God. From that basis, yeah, you could say it's a religion. But if you're looking at religion from like the constructs that we've seen of how to behave and how to be, etc., I wouldn't put them in the same box. Right. I'd more so put it as maybe a spiritual practice or a spiritual encyclopedia. That kind of gives you different spiritual opportunities based on what you're ready for.
How do you find, because like a lot of this information was put together a long time ago, how do you find that it works for the modern day world? So I was saying this to you earlier, that because it was written so long ago, it felt absolutely necessary at that period of time. At that
period, yeah.
How do you find, would you say it's fit for purpose in this day to day? Can it be fit for purpose, or does there need to be a more modern approach in it now to help it evolve into 2023?
Into 2023, right. I'd say with the Vedic teachings, so like teachings from books like the Bhagavad Gita or the Srimad Bhagavatam, what's amazing about them is that they've withstood the test of time. You can read the Bhagavad Gita and find a lot of things that relate to you right now, in how you live and how you function in your life. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is like the postgraduate study of the Bhagavad Gita, you get examples, like a wide plethora of people who have had a particular consciousness that we can relate to. So I can give you an example. There's this guy called Ajamil who, was from a very like respectful family, very, very like nice, honorable, simple guy. He goes out on the streets and as he's walking and perusing the streets, he sees a couple being naughty externally. So, like hooking up in the public, and then that corrupts his mind. And then he's like, hey, I want to explore this. So then he finds that girl and then he's with that girl his entire life. And that's something we can relate to in our modern day world. At times, you hear stories of, a guy meeting this girl and he's in a committed situation and just gets drifted. So that becomes something you can relate to, and how he goes through his journey of awakening even after making such a mistake. It's something we can relate to in our lives today, and you can have conversations of, if someone makes these kinds of mistakes, how can they bounce back from it? So I think the teachings and the stories and the principles, they have withstood the test of time, and they are still applicable and relevant to us today. Maybe the challenge is in how it's being communicated to the people today. And that's maybe where persons like myself or at least, like my mentor, for example, they're attempting to make these teachings become more relevant to a person living in 2023, because it is relatable, it is practical, it is stuff that you can test, In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about, the character called Arjuna, he asks, why am I at times impelled to making a bad decision? And we've all experienced it. That something's wrong, George. I'm not supposed to do this, but there's just an energy that's just like, but there's no harm in doing it. So, and then Krishna takes you through this journey that first you'll contemplate. And then if you carry on with the contemplation, it's going to be stuck within your mind. It will probe you to act. If you end up acting, you've set that intention, you get reciprocation from it, but you don't get the same happiness, so it makes you frustrated. And then you kind of carry on in this pool. So, we can relate to that.
Like.
Right, exactly.
I'm definitely like
yeah, and the same scriptures are explaining this, and it's so profound that was written over 5,000 years ago, but that makes a lot of sense now. So I think it's more so in how we're communicating the teachings that are there in today's, for the postmodern psyche, for the person living in the 21st century who's living in their 9 to 5, who's been bombarded with social media and TikTok ads and all these kind of things. How can we communicate these principles for them? like that.
Thank you for that. No, I appreciate. Thanks for explaining it. Like that, to be fair.
Right.
It does make sense. And I wanted to ask you what has been like the biggest eye-opening moment for you, like on your spiritual journey?
The biggest. I mean, there's always different moments. It's one of those. It's like it never ends. One of my mentors is an amazing personality. His name is Ananta Gopal. I don't know if you'll ever watch this, but if he does, hey Ananta. And he mentioned to me that because he's been practicing for very many years. He's been in the monastery for many years, and he just told me this thing that has always stuck with me, that every day he is finding more realizations to affirm that his journey is accurate. And so every day when he wakes up, he's getting a new realization, a new moment, something that kind of sticks by him. And, and I think there's so many serendipitous things that are happening in our lives. We're just not attuned to see them. We're not able to, it's like, people are still being provided with food, they're still being sustained. So many things are still happening, even if they don't think about it. And we become so acclimatized to thinking that that's just the norm, whereas in reality, it's a blessing. I mean, you can see what's happening right now, like in Gaza, for example. It's so horrendous what you're seeing, and it's like, oh my God. So when you look at your life and you're seeing that you're having everything being provided every day, you're not having to have the same anxiety of, will I, be dying tomorrow, in the same way, then you're able to acknowledge the blessing that is your life.
I think the issue with things like what's going on in Gaza is that you're so disconnected from it. You almost pretend it's like, well, not pretend, but you just don't even really believe it exists.
Exactly.
Where for somebody actually in it, like living in it, like it's really real for them.
Yeah, and I think because we're having these discussions and these conversations about it, then you can now look back and be like, oh, my life as George, how blessed have I been?
Yeah.
And you can have this active realization that the discourse of my life has been filled with a lot of blessings. And that's what Krishna consciousness means, being aware of or conscious of how divinity has really placed you positively through your journey of life, and
because we get very caught up in that trap of what's not working for us rather than what is actually working for us, and being grateful for that.
That's it. And so I could say there's no, every day there's an eye-opening moment somehow. I could say even this experience with you right now is validating for me as well, this experience, and that I'm actually on the right journey and on the right track, because I'm put in a position where I have to talk about it.
Well, it goes back to what you were saying as well, is we forget, we need reminding all the time. Reminding about things. And I think, like, because there's so much information out there, it's very quick to forget and get lost in all of the information out there.
That's it. Actually, because I forgot about that. My mind always travels, and you had mentioned it. You asked earlier, like, why do we always forget? It's because of our imperfections. The mind will always wander, and it will disassociate with certain things because it's craving something new. So for example, people know what a bad night out is like when you've maybe had too many shots of tequila that you hadn't planned for, right? But then because over time you forget what that experience is like in its actual manifestation, you'll go back again and you'll have even more shots, right? Because you've forgotten. But if you constantly remind yourself regularly of what these experiences are like, if you constantly remind yourself, I'm a being of love, if you constantly remind yourself, I'm here to serve others, if you constantly remind yourself things of divine consciousness, then it sticks more. That's why I guess even for why the academic system exists, is because in a young age, you're able to repeat more without getting bored. So the kids can repeat until it sticks, so that's why we need that repetition. We need that constant reminder.
I think the important thing is, at that point in time, is that you're repeating the right things that are actually going to be of best service to you, because I think sometimes the problem with information out there that you're being told is it's not exactly what you might need for yourself all the time.
Right.
I think that's the challenge with academics, is that making sure that you're in the right environment for you to actually really grow and prosper in.
Yeah, and I think hopefully it's evolving now, where you see, like, I've been to a few schools and I've seen they're kind of customizing the academic system to suit the nature of the students. like one of the schools, I think it's called Townley Manor. I was there and I was seeing some kids are into like farming and stuff. So as part of the school project, they're trying to, you know, create like a garden and stuff where they can grow their own produce and stuff like that. Like you see all these different, slowly we're getting to a space where people are becoming more attuned to working within their nature and encouraging others to work within our nature, because, you know, our normal academic system was more so trying to judge how like a monkey, a cow and a pig, how effective they are at climbing a tree.
Yes.
But they'd all be climbing, they will all have different strengths, you know? So I think it's evolving in that way. And I think the more we're having this kind of discussions and topics, parents can go back to their kids and not just be thinking about what can I give to my child that will make them get the most money, but more so what can I give to my child that will make them most situated in their being, so that they can find, you know, whatever goals they need, whatever, if it's financial or social, emotional, relationship wise, 100%. How they can be the better version of themselves. Yeah.
And how is your mum now?
Oh, my mom's good. Oh, yeah.
So yeah, what happened with that all?
Right. Oh, yeah. I left you in a cliffhanger there, didn't
I?
Yeah, no. So I moved on into the temple. Then I carried on because there was actually, so there's a deity in the temple known as Nrsingadev. And Nrsingadev is like the personification of divinity in divine's protective form. And so I was and he manifests in this like half man, half lion that rips open the chest of this individual. It's quite, you know, it's like more like, it's scary. Like when you look at the picture, when I first saw it, I was like, what is this? But you see a small boy kind of garlanding this lion. And the story was that his father was, he thought that he was a king. He was a great person. And, his son comes, but he has awareness of God. So his son says, actually, you know, all your strength and all your abilities, Dad, are coming from a divine source. They're not really from you. So you kind of need to humble yourself down, Papa. And the father, obviously having a huge ego, got really upset and was actually trying to kill his son.
Because of it?
Yeah, because it's like, what do you mean that, you know...
What does it mean to be a divine... Like it comes from a divine source.
Yeah.
What does that even?
That really our abilities are coming from an energy higher than ourselves that we can, you know, label as God. You know, some people say the universe. You know, and we understand it from the Krishna conscious perspective that it is God, and God he can wear many hats, different forms. He's got that ability. If we've got ability to wear different hats, surely the Supreme can do the same.
Right.
So he was making the point that actually, you know, your energy and ability is coming from God. But his father was quite upset, and then he tries to kill him, and he reaches a stage where the divine himself comes to subdue his father. And actually ends up killing his father. And so the son, he comes to the Lord and asks the Lord, you know, I don't want anything from you. You've given me everything. I've always had awareness of your consciousness, but I'd like you to deliver my father's consciousness so that he can be a much more happier person in his future life. And the Lord was like, you know what? Because of your good deeds, he will be awakened and he will go through this journey of awakeness. So I was being told this story, and I remember asking the monk who was telling me the story, okay, so if I be like that small little boy and I pray to this lion guy and I ask him to protect my mom, will he do it? And the monk was like, of course he will, very confidently. So I was like, all right, I'm going to do it. And 2 years down the line, on the anniversary of the appearance of this energy, I remembered my mom, of the appearance of Lord Nrsingadev. I remembered my mom, and I called her and I was like, hey, how are you doing? And she was like, fun, you've called me. I just got, you know, my, I just came back from a checkup from hospital and my cancer is on remission. And so when, you know, she was like, oh, my cancer is cleared and everything, that served as like a symbol for me that, oh, I was worshipping this lion guy, and then he kind of reciprocated with me. So maybe that's a sign I need to keep on going. And yeah, she's been okay ever since. She's living her best life now back home in Kenya, you know, yeah, still working. My mom is really, really hard worker. It's really hard to get her to not work. She always likes to work, to serve others, to entertain. So she's doing well. She's doing really, really well. And,
I'm really glad to hear that.
Yeah. And she's kind of affirmed it to me, you know, that I should carry on trying to serve God and higher purpose in this
She's
life.
learned to accept it.
Yeah. And she always encourages me. Actually, even at times when I'm struggling with my faith, or I'm struggling with everything, I call my mom and she reestablishes it for me. She even sends me, I don't know if I get all these messages on, you know, like these threads that are sent and forwarded like thousands of times. So she always I get this reminder for the day, trust and have faith, let go. And, you know, she's very, very amazing at reminding me and keeping that faith. So she's doing really
holding
good.
You accountable as well.
Yeah. Are you practicing what you're preaching, Ian?
yeah, exactly. So what's next for you on your journey?
What's next? Wow. Have I thought? I'm still trying to figure that out. At the moment, yes, I think, you know, getting more situated in London, and I'm trying to do and hold more forums and spaces where we can have this kind of discussions. Trying to set up a few things coming soon. So I will definitely I'll probably come back once a few things are established and be like, hey guys.
Why not?
Yeah, but really trying to create more spaces where we can have this kind of conversations, more spaces where people can't fear talking about stuff to do with God, because I think, especially you could probably relate to this. There's like a weird energy when people talk about God that people just divert from. It's as if God's been misrepresented so badly. And I feel like now we should be comfortable talking about God and about God's amazingness, or, you know, or even having the questions and challenging, does God exist, and having things around that. I think it's, you know,
I think like how I represent it in my head is that I'm just very open-minded to hearing these things and talking about these things. Like, it doesn't mean I have to adopt it in its entirety, but there's always like little gems that you can take from conversations like these and in the past that could help you in your life.
100%.
It goes back to the saying, like, what have you really got to lose?
Exactly. And what's to be scared of? If you know, there's nothing to be scared of. Just explore it and, you know, learn from it, and then you can look back and be like, you know, in the Bhagavad Gita, what's amazing is so Krishna gives all these keys to Arjuna, who is his friend, and it becomes his disciple. But then at the end of him giving him all these different nuggets of wisdom, he tells him, deliberate, and then you decide what you want to do.
What was that word?
Deliberate, like think about it, you know? He doesn't tell him you must do this. He doesn't put him in a box. I think why people even veer away from religions and topics about God is because we're kind of being forced to be in a box. And it's like, you either have to do this or this will happen. You either follow this or it's eternal damnation. But no, Krishna is saying, no, deliberate on it. Think about what I have to say. And then you decide what will, you hold yourself accountable. You take sovereignty over yourself. Hold yourself responsible.
Live with your decisions.
And I think if we can, you know, give people that wisdom and then be like, okay, we've given it to you. Because I feel like people deserve to know this. I feel like it could help, like, understanding the self, meditation, yoga, different conversations that awaken your consciousness. They really have such a powerful effect in people's minds. And I've seen it not only with myself, but I've met so many people whose lives have been transformed because of it. Countless examples I could give. That I don't think we should throw the baby with the bathwater. I think, like, you know, people should still know about it, even though and we should be ready to present it in a way that they can listen and connect with it, and then they can take more charge in their lives and live a much more happier, more fulfilled life. Because I get this feeling like I'd be happy if more people are happier. And if I can aid for more people to be happy and to live a better version of themselves, then that for me is fulfilling.
Yeah, and that you almost see that as your purpose.
Yeah.
No, nice. No, it's important. I think it's really important to have that purpose. To be honest, I think for a lot of people, for definitely a lot of people, they don't have that purpose. They're still trying to figure it out, or they have no desire to have a purpose. But I think that's really important in life, to feel that internal kind of fulfillment.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I really understand it. And I think the other way I look at that as well is that if you know it's helped you or helped people around you, then surely it's going to help more people.
And naturally when something works so well for you, you want to share it. You know, like if you found like a business model or something that's okay, unless it's you want to like, you know, become a monopoly.
No, it makes sense.
Naturally you want, when you have something so good and you know, I'm sure you've ever dealt with it, like you see a friend maybe going through something and you know that you've got a solution for it, and so you're always having this feeling of just experience it. Trust me, you know.
I think the only challenge that you have to be mindful of or be responsible with is sometimes the issue that what works well for you doesn't always
work for everyone else. Yeah.
And when you are giving advice, it's making sure you're doing it on the basis that that's what's best for that individual, not what might be best for you.
Exactly.
Which is a hard thing to get right.
Yeah. When in giving advice, more so, we're always trying to be. We're giving it from our own subjective experience without having that empathic view of what they've experienced and stuff. And, you know, I remember, and this actually was a game changer for me when I was going through a difficult time and I opened up to a friend about it. And I told him everything that was going on, and he looked at me and he said, you know, Ian, if I'm being honest with you, I can't relate with anything that you've shared with me, but I'm here for you. Right. And that for me hit me more than someone being like, yeah, I get it, because the reality is you probably don't. You know, you probably have not experienced it as I am experiencing it, but you don't. But what I really appreciate about that response was, I'm not trying to show you that I know, I'm just trying to show you that I care. Yeah. And you know, people won't care how much you know until they know how much you care. You know, and when they know how much you care for them, then they'll be inquisitive to find out what you have to say, you know, like that.
Yeah. Do you know what? That is a really valid point. I think what a lot of us probably struggle to understand is sometimes it's just being present with that person who's going through it as opposed to giving them the answer to their problem.
Exactly.
Some people just want to be heard because it's an opportunity for when people talk about their problems, just get it off their chest.
Yeah,
just release it.
At times you just want to I just want to let it out. Don't give me a solution, man.
Yeah.
I don't want your solution.
No, that's right. And I think by sometimes giving people the answer to that, you're almost forcing it back down their throat about what they've got to do. So I think it's really important that to be present, to let that person have a voice. Yeah. Not always try and solve that problem for them, but just hear them out. And
exactly. Yeah, I'm so lucky. So one of my mentors, an amazing guy, his name is Jai. And I have this
glory.
Like all glories. Yeah, he's Jai Jagannath. He's a cool guy. And one thing I like about our relationship is he has so much wisdom. He lived in the monastery for, I think, over 13 years, 14 years. And he's got so much depth. And then I'll come to him with the pettiest of issues. And even though he's got the answer, and I know he's going to give me the nugget of wisdom, he gives me that allowance to just express myself and just be who I am in my pettiness and just say exactly how I feel. And I think that's what we need, to give people allowance. I don't just need an answer. Let them just express. And if someone can be allowed to express themselves and go all crazy and you're there to listen to them and give them your heart, I think then they'll be more prone to hearing what you have to say afterwards, because your heart's been given. Yeah, so shout out to you, Jai, you're amazing.
Well, do you know what? Like we've covered a lot of things.
A lot.
Yeah, and once again, I'm really grateful for you being here today. It's an absolute pleasure to see you again after such a long period.
We
won't leave it as long this time.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'll be back again soon.
Yeah, why not? 100%. Well, thank you, Ian. It's a pleasure having you on.
Thank you, George.